Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the greatest player of all time, the Zerg in the blue, the finisher. It's Serral. Up against the best player from the United States of America, the Protoss in the red, the battle mage. We have Astrea. A best of 7 Protoss versus Zerg tournament showdown between two of the few players who actually treat this like a strategy game. So hopefully you'll appreciate my opening strategy of countering the algorithm by simply asking you to smash that like button. And maybe even subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we? 1,540 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Astrea, almost an economic cheese strategy to start, his very first scout of the game will be this adept. He didn't send a probe, he didn't try to block the base, which, if Serral had done just a straight-up Zerg rush, send 6, 8, 10 Zerglings across the map, he may very well have done critical damage, possibly even won the game. But Astrea did scout something very important, and that is his opponent's name is Serral. So the likelihood of him committing to an early Zerg rush, as opposed to a long-term macro play, vanishingly small, so I don't blame Astrea for hedging his bets on that one. First Oracle comes out, and with energy recharge, one Oracle nowadays can do the work of even Moracles days ago. Not days, many days, like 100 days since the patch. Anyways, with energy recharge, you can slap 100 energy on that Oracle, the trade out for shield battery overcharge, and now the Oracle can reveal the creep tumors and kill them too. Thank you for the demonstration. Buy Oracles today. Not that Protoss needed any convincing. But with one Oracle able to accomplish, combined with the fact that Queens now cost 25 more minerals, and Oracles can get so much more done on their own, while you don't have shield battery overcharge, you certainly have a lot of options for defending against early Zerg pressure. Which is why I find it so surprising that Serral's going for a Baneling nest. He came in, he scouted the Twilight Council. And he might be thinking, oh, it's Glaive to Depths. But he started the Baneling nest before he saw the Twilight Council. So he was intending on a Baneling bust either way. And right now, he's smuggling his Zerglings out of the base, clearly trying to avoid any of the vision of the Oracles. He has enough drones. This is not all in, but it's certainly something he would like to remain hidden until the last possible second. 20 more Zerglings on the way. I guess this is kind of a preemptive defense against Glaive to Depths, with a side of potentially doing a bunch of damage at the third. I can't remember the last time I've seen, like, a high economy Baneling bust against Protoss. Steve! Oh my. I'm sorry. Steve, once again, photobombed, camera bombed us. So, we're the ones that kind of came onto his territory. But still, that's not the point. The Oracles in the corner, and most importantly on Serral's side of the map, as the Banelings are waddling into the third. Astrea recalls the Oracle back, but the probes are way too slow on moving away. A whole bunch of them obliterated. Blink is 20 seconds out. The Oracle still has energy and recharge to make sure it has enough to take out the Zerglings. A lot of the probes are badly bruised, and they will not be repaired, but how much damage in 11 probes? Astrea still has 56 of them. So, not great, not terrible. Honestly, that was about the best it ever could have gone. Astrea didn't move the probes, his Oracles weren't at home, Blink was not done. It doesn't get much better, which is why I'm a little confused as to what Serral was trying to accomplish. I think most of it was preempting any sort of early aggression with a side of at least keeping Astrea busy in his base, because the best way to scout your opponent is to show up at their front door and try to murder all their... Is he gonna... Well, it appears... It appears that Astrea creates the normal Protoss wall against the Zerglings, which is reliant on Stalkers being exactly in the right position, so rarely efficient. Kills a couple more off. Looks like now both players more than happy to sit back and build up for a macro game. It kind of felt out of character as well. Serral going for a baneling bust? He was already building drones by the time it hit. So clearly intending on a more high economy playstyle. Oracle gets another energy recharge. Astrea's been very... Honestly, I think the energy recharge addition, Astrea more than any other player in the game benefits from it. Maybe Max Pax, but with his playstyle so heavy on using those oracles and other spellcasters, I mean mostly Templar. Speaking of which, Psystorm already on the way. It benefits this very late game spellcaster heavy playstyle more than anything else. And of course the implications, you can warp in a high Templar, slap 100 energy in, boom, 2 storms. 2 storms right off the bat, which is massive when it comes to defending. In fact, it's even better than Kadarin Amulet back in the day. Now this fight, everybody kind of piling in on both sides. Astrea stumbles into a bunch of Hydras and Lings. The stasis ward, Serral, he sees it and he just jumps right on it, which technically saves the Zerglings from the Stalkers, but allows Astrea to actually salvage kind of a decent fight out of a mostly terrible situation. He ends up losing 9 Stalkers in total, though I'm not sure how many with that early aggression. And Serral has no infestation pit. He's got Baneling speed on the way. He's got 79 drones back at home. He's got 5 hatcheries. What I'm trying to say is he has the full swarm bearing down on Astrea, and Astrea is just going to have to turn the tides with Storm. Serral will be surging forward momentarily. Zergling splitting off, heading towards the 3rd base. Baneling speed about to complete. Stasis, stop right there, criminal Lings. And that'll cut off the flank for now. But is there enough Storm to actually ward this away? The Baneling's dodging back. The Oracle might be targeted down. Another Stasis creates something of a force field. The Hydra's on the back line, just now finishing Hydra range mid-fight. They already have the speed, though, so they can close the distance pretty quickly. Serral using the Banelings as a biological shield, and the Hydras will just take out the 4th base. Big Zealot counterattack headed, and the Queens, Brenda, call everyone. We're right here. Nobody needs to call. Who calls people nowadays? Shut up, Susan. We're in the, it's game 1. Stop being Sorry. I blacked out for a moment. Serral now, Infestation Pit. Another couple dozen Zerglings. More Hydras on the way. He's got 77 drones. Objective accomplished. What I do love about both these players, and why I say they're true strategy game players, is it's so clear, the intent. They have a plan, and they're executing it as best they can. Though that Baneling bust was still super weird. I stand by that. Serral now working up to enough map control to get to the late game, whereas Astrea just trying to hold on for it. He's got a fleet beacon on the way. He's going to call in the Golden Armada, and hopefully a mothership and maybe some Tempest can turn things around. Meanwhile, Serral with 5 Dropper Lords on the way. Ideally, he keeps Astrea limited to at most 4 bases until he can get an overwhelming amount of Zerg. And right now, Dropper Lords may be the best way to keep them bottled up at home and potentially commit the wrong amount of units to the wrong place at the very wrong time and get a kill on that base again. But Astrea is able to tech up. He's actually kept all of his Templar. Yes, every single one of his Templar. Technically, he lost an Archon, but a lot of Protoss players are lackadaisical with those Templar. They think having a couple storms, all right, I did my job. We threw the storms out. The Templar died, or they had to merge into Archons. So be it. But Astrea is incredibly diligent about keeping the right units alive at the right time, and maybe turning things around with that. And now the storms are whipped out again. Hurricane winds outside the 4th will wash Serral away for now, and the Blink Stalkers are actually able to box out the drop as well. So Astrea, solid defense on both fronts. And now the supply gap closes. Mothership is on the way, +1 air weapons and shields in production, +3 ground weapons about to complete as well. Astrea keeping up on those upgrades, and I give him a grade A for diligence. The drop's coming in towards the main, but a warp in preempts it. Now Serral has decided he's just going to get the late game. Spire, more hatcheries, overseers, lurker range, adrenal glands, burrow, +2 ranged attack. So we see where this is going. The siege will begin. He has more than enough respect for Astrea's Templar control, so he's going to try to take control in another fashion. The lurkers on the low ground will be able to slice through the ground onto the probe line. Don't ask how that works, all right? I'm not here to explain geometry, but oh no, these storms are indeed a sign. That's enough tangents. Because Astrea needs to deal with the lurkers, and a mothership's on the way. Though Serral has the overseers overhead, active cloaking is not going to make the difference. The Templar gliding a little bit too close to the lurkers, but the storms are evaporating the Hydralisk. Serral still denying mining at the 4th base. The Zerglings are coming in. 92 drones back at home, as Serral now has the economy to pretty much build whatever he wants, lose it, and build it again. Astrea, though, has been remarkably cost efficient. He's lost almost barely half the resources, 1,000 less gas. He picks off another couple overlords, adding to the tally. And he needs to be this efficient just to be in the game, as Serral has mined so much more overall, and he continues to do so. The lurkers are finally dealt with. The oracles overhead. He's kept the oracles alive this whole time. He's only lost 3 High Templar and 1 Archon. Of course, Serral's been pretty efficient himself, besides, you know, the Banelings, which I keep going back to. The mothership is chased down by a roving band of corruptors and will be forced to recall home. Whoa, the lurker concave on the low ground eviscerated the army, but Astrea goes forward, not intimidated by the lurkers on their own, though maybe he should be, as a lot of the Templar get their cloaks ripped apart. Are they capes? I think they're cloaks. Capes are for heroes. And this is Astrea, not hero. Nexus, right-clicked by the Adrenalings, but not enough to take it out. The probe count dips to 53, but that means Astrea's army supply is still very high in comparison. He's got 114 army supply. Right now, Serral, with full 4-base saturation, 88 drones, he can't even get that much supply. Without at least doing some... Oh, is that a chip? I don't know what's real anymore. Well, there's a gang of zealots hanging out, fraternizing with the enemy. Neural Parasite on the way, +2 air weapons, +2 shields, +2 armor. As Astrea continues the upgrade, corruptors continue to roam, looking for the mothership. That is the only air unit that can fight back right now. No Tempest on the way. He's continuing to upgrade air weapons, anticipating a switch into that more Tempest-based army. Mothership out on its own for a moment. And, well, the lurkers on the plateau slice through an assimilator, working on the probes. Astrea. The problem right now is the army needs to be together, or at least nearby. It can easily get picked apart, and Serral trying to prove that. If you simply don't have the critical mass, Serral will run him over. The Nexus itself is under fire. Down in the red, the Oracle drops a revelation, the charge lots, and Serral doesn't... Oh, he retargets onto the Nexus. He realizes it, but not before his lurkers are already removed from the ground and put in the unit's lost tab. Astrea, though, prioritizing his army composition over everything else. Broodlords are on the way for Serral, as Astrea proving a incredibly tough nut to crack. And almost every late game unit now. The one thing we're missing, Infestors, but he's already got Neural Parasite. So clearly, Infestors are on his mind. Burrow is done as well. Serral still. He's lost, wow. He's lost over double the gas. Still not that much so far, but it's adding up. The real number we're looking for is 4,500, which is a full base of gas, 250 apiece per gas geyser. So if we start getting past that number, that's when a half-map scenario becomes a lot more confusing. But a mothership, the storms warding away, Time Warp trying to help, active cloaking used to help deal with the Broodlords. There is detection for Serral, but it's a little harder for the Broodlords to reliably get into range. Meanwhile, huge counterattack, a lot of Archons. But the combined spines of both the crawlers and the lurkers will be more than enough to ward Astrea away. And now he's just coming behind the army. Oh, wait a second. The Queen's going to be surrounded on the back line, which just became the front. And the Broodlords as well. What a full 360-degree Protoss surround the storms. The Broodlords are on the run, but they can't run. They can only glide away painfully as they try to stutter step out some Broodlings to save the day. I think Serral just select all army unburrowed the lurkers and pulled all the defensive lurkers off the defensive line just to try to save some of these Broodlords. The mothership is killed in her own home. A small victory in the face of a pretty overwhelming and comprehensive defeat for Serral on the field. What a fight from Astrea. But can he translate it into anything more? He's now destroyed 18 lurkers, 6 broodlords, about 350 zerglings, but there's 17 more lurkers on the way. Serral can replenish almost everything. Astrea, really what he did was he kept his outlying bases alive, but he's just not able to turn it into a kill on Serral. Not quite yet, at least. Another wave comes in, Serral with 1,500 in the bank, but Astrea's also maxed out now. The storms softening up all the lurkers. I'm gonna try again, but more lurkers at home. Serral has 26 lurkers. Oh my. And gonna cut off the battle group to the north side. Astrea, a prickly position to be in. The spines cutting through. Serral actually a bit supply block. Both players at 198 supply. Astrea has a lot of gas in the bank. He was building 3 oracles at a time, telling you how important that revelation is. The lurkers are moving forward. The surviving broodlords going to try to attack the north side base again. That nexus still softened up. Banelings roll through, killing even more probes. The lurkers come back to defend. There is an observer, but there's just simply not enough units to deal with it. Oracles slap down the revelation. The Corruptors, he double kills the Nexi. Astrea gives up the Nexi in favor of going for the counterattack. And he has a great army, but he has no ability to rebuild it. There's still plenty of money in the bank. He can warp in a lot more High Templar and a lot less anything else. 3 Tempests on the way, going straight into the lurkers yet again. The key part of this game is how the lack of respect for the lurkers that Astrea has. Though these units are clearly learning some. He didn't have the detection. He didn't know they were there. But lurkers on their own are really not that scary to an army this beefy. The sheer amount of HP on those zealots, those archons and immortals, combined with the potential of Psystorm, is creating a very confusing scenario. Wait a second. Astrea has 131 to 113 army supply. He just killed 2 bases. If he wasn't almost flat broke, well, does that matter, though? Serral, he still has... Oh, he rebuilt Broodlords. Both players with a surprising amount of upgrades. +3 melee, as well as soon-to-be +2 flyer attack on the Broods, as they're skirting around the storms. The Templar are being picked off. There should be a recall available. He does have one. I think he still wants to threaten, but again... If Serral hadn't killed pretty much all of Astrea's economy, he has 1 mineral patches. At least mineral patches nearby a nexus. He's long distance mining. This is unsustainable. Serral may have suffered heavy losses, but they weren't crippling. He can financially recover from this. Meanwhile, Astrea, he's long distance mining. He needs to go. He keeps pulling back, but... Well, a fungal catches an oracle. Immortals caught out on their own. And they're not really solitary creatures, despite their nature. The Tempest drops out a wave of changelings. The lurkers are protecting the base. The high ground, he has to pull away from the mineral line, but the broodlords are sieging the nexus. And Astrea, it's feeling like check and soon mate may be called. Lurkers eviscerated, or lurkers eviscerating, sorry. Storms on the low ground, but Astrea boxed into his 3 bases, which now have no resources nearby them. His income nearly flatlined. The Tempests are good, but they're not going to be enough to stop this. A microbial shroud thrown out there for dramatic effect. Kind of an odd place to put that. Feedback on the... everybody just throwing spells out there, hoping something hits. And right now, Serral closing in on the army. Doesn't want to let Astrea rebuild the energy on the Templar. Thinks he has an opportunity to close this out, and he may very well be right. An attempted... oh, just straight up GG. He gets collapsed upon, the counterattack shut down, and Serral survives. But it certainly was a lot closer than expected. Serral maxed out with plenty of bases. Astrea holds on despite everything. And he's able to fight back. So we got a series on our hands. Even though Serral probably the heavy favorite statistically, Astrea has taken games off him, especially in this new patch. Like I mentioned, I think this patch benefits him more than pretty much any other Protoss, as it truly demonstrates the power of Battle Mage style. So we'll see going into Game 2. Serral picks up a 1-0 lead. And Astrea, well, honestly, I keep going back to the Bane bus, like, just one letter. Why? I have to assume it was pre-countering Adept Glaives, because in a best of 7 especially, it is obligatory for Protoss players to at least try Adept Glaives once. Right? And Serral, like, a solid third of his losses to Protoss in the last several years are to random Adept timings. It's just like the ladder. 30% of the time it works, every time. Which, good enough odds to get things started, but Astrea just played straight up. Almost brought it back. If Serral hadn't put such a chokehold on his economy, he never really beat the army until there was no way left to rebuild it. Which, I'm not sure what that indicates for the series, but it provided me with plenty of filler commentary, at least until the probe got here to flirt with the minerals. He is scouting early enough, making sure there's no early pool. Serral has obviously thrown in a little more aggression lately. I feel like every now you got to throw it in there. Not every series, not even necessarily every tournament, but you can't let players cut corners. All right, you can't let them have such rounded gameplay. Instead, you got to keep them on edge. So, just throwing that Bane Bust in may very well affect the way Astrea plays from here on out. Despite the fact it didn't really do anything, if he's willing to do that, what else is he... a Roach Allin? A Nidus? Honestly, I cannot remember the last time Serral did a Lair Rush Nidus. Okay? And that's what we have Dark for. But come to the dark side. We have Nidus Worms. And random proxy hatch timings and all other sorts of things to avoid actually playing late game versus Protoss. Or, of course, there's Rainer's strategy, which is just be the Protoss. Though Dark is also partaking in that particular strategy lately as well, so. Stargate. Oracle will... Overlord will spot it. I'm sure the Oracle will spot the Overlord as well. Queen. Creep Tumor. Ah, the Overlord hanging out right on the edge. So flying units by default have slightly more vision than anything on the ground. So Serral can see him. Astrea knows where the Overlord is, obviously. But there's not much he can do to deal with it. He also chose multiple Adepts early. He actually went for the Pylon Gate Cyber Wall, which is about as quick as you can wall off. Only need 2 buildings. Does leave you a bit vulnerable. But, Hero, take notes. I say, I feel like Hero's, wild card Protoss His Forrest Gumpian Protoss sometimes works in his favor because Astrea is so precise most of the time. He's predictable. But the Adepts, they find 2 kills. The Queens, well, denied any. Gets out. Great recall timing, and he forces out a few more Zerglings. Just look at the worker count. Almost nothing has happened. Serral's behind 7 workers with almost no ability to really catch up quickly. And you do have the larva injects popping out more drones, but every spore, every gas geyser costs another drone. So you get nickel and dimed in the drone count from pretty much the start to the mid-game. But Serral catching up now as Astrea takes his third. The Zerglings, and the recall was used on the Adepts. Serral gets in. He gets a wraparound on the Stalkers, and the timing. These 8 Zerglings may do more than the entire Link Bane attack from last game. He drags the Oracles back. Okay, the Baneling Nest, it's a trend. Okay, before I thought it was a fluke. But instead, he's gonna do it again. He doesn't like Adept Glaives. You know, if almost all of your surprise losses are to Adept Glaives, the Baneling Nest is worth it. It's not that expensive. 100 minerals, 50 gas. It just slows down your economy a little bit more. I don't think he's going for the big Baneling all-in this time. He's just hedging his bets, because if you don't have either a Roach one or a Baneling Nest by the time a counterattack comes across it, you may just lose the game, which obviously is not something Serral makes a habit out of. Evolution Chamber is on the way. +1 melee attack is the first choice. Templar Archives for Astrea. Oracles, This is a message from the Hatchery Owners Association. My name is Brenda, this is Susan, and with all due respect, get the off my creep! Brenda, I think you're wasting your time talking to the pro. Shut up, Susan. We have to give them a written warning or a verbal warning because this asserts dominance because Protoss do not have mouths. Sometimes, Brenda, I wish you would use yours a little bit less. Sorry, I blacked out for a... The Stalkers! Now, poking and prodding at the 5th base. We'll see where it ends up. Serral taking 2 bases at once. Baneling speed on the way, straight into Hydraling Bane. Storm for Astrea back at home. Serral with 69 drones, which is a very nice baseline economy, but doesn't allow you to tech up too regularly. So going to need another round if he wants to go for the full Hydraling Bane. And speaking of Banes, more Banes just waddling in. The Zealots, a recall. The Zealots taken down. No charge. Not that that would have necessarily helped. It might have just expedited the process. Forces another recall out. And that is incredibly key. Because for almost a couple minutes now, Serral will know that Astrea doesn't commit. Astrea is a very careful player. He's not going to send those units out, at least the majority of the time, unless he has recall available. So, again, the recall used probably a bit late and a bit cautiously. But that allows Serral to get another round of drones. He's got 5 bases up. Astrea knows about all those bases. But there's not much he can do about it at the moment. Wow, 50 supply lead. The Queens! Up. It was just Karen, it's fine. Make the meetings much quieter. Brenda, you're the pro... More banlings on the way. And now this is such a stylistic change from what Serral's been doing historically. Now this mid-game aggression to combat the Protoss, hit the 4th base, make sure they cannot get the Golden Armada, get all the Templar. Essentially wiping out the Storms before they start. Serral is nearly maxed out. 8.5 minutes, 5 bases, Hydra speed about to complete. Storm is done. But he is going to need the Storm of the Century here in order to take all this out. Lings and Banes headed towards the natural simultaneously. Storm softening everything up. A great tower defense style choke point though. And honestly, Astrea doing an incredible job here. The Banelings are rolling into the natural though. 14 probes dead. And the 4th base overrun. Astrea, his spell casting on point, and a counterattack with a whole bunch of zealots. So wait a second, Serral might not be able to get the Nexus, and even if he does, it may cost the Hydras. He sticks around a little bit longer. The zealots on top of the Queens, and it looked great for Serral with all those probe kills and the damage he was able to do, but he didn't kill the 4th base, and he lost some drones back at home. So Astrea with a perfectly timed counterattack, a great set of storms, and so important. If that counterattack was not happening, the Archons would have easily been taken out the 4th base. If it was a little bit earlier, Serral would have set up to deal with it. If it was later, then he would have gotten all the damage done and then come back to defend. So Astrea saves his game and maybe even takes the lead. No, the Storm's off the mark. The 4th Nexus will go down one way or another. Stasis. More Templar gliding back. The Storms, even hitting the Oracles here awkwardly. Again, the Storms are absolutely incredible. And Serral is down to 120 supply. He's playing like he has a 50 supply lead. But right now, Astrea continues to build up. The Zealots engaging. The Hydras helping out. The Queen's coming back. Astrea pulls back yet again. But he keeps holding. But the problem again. Serral has 5 bases. That's, even though he only has a few more workers, that's a massive income lead. Just the efficiency of workers. Those first 16 on each base. And he has the rich Vespene Geyser in the center. Double the efficiency there. So despite having a similar worker count, Serral has like 40% more income right now. Some real stonks right here with the finisher. And again, the Hydras, the Lings, the Banes. He comes into the 3rd base simultaneously. There's nothing to stop him. The Banelings roll in. Some of the Templar are taken down. 11 probes slaughtered. And Astrea, he just can't seem to pull it together in time. He's making the plays, but he's far from being called Shakespeare. Infestation Pit is on the way. More Banelings, more Hydras, +2 ranged attack. And Astrea has more Templar than ever, but it may be temporary. The creep is springboarding directly into this location. Another wave. Staggering the Banelings to draw out the Storms. More probes transferring it at the worst possible time. And gets that last hit on the Nexus. And again, though, Astrea with a huge counterattack. The Zealots on top of everything. Astrea has the better army, but Serral has the economy still. The Zealot warp-in is canceled. And no, the warp-in... Oh my god, it just stops moving. I think Astrea either lost track of it or expected it to die, but it lives. The Prism who lived. But Astrea is doing such a great job of damage control. But Serral's doing just such a great job of controlling his damage. Now, feeling obligated to move out. There's no Lurker Den. There's no Hive. They're in production, but they have not yet been delivered. The Stasis may keep the Robo alive. The Oracle's not even quite in range. He's gonna lose the robotics facility. The army comes back again. There and back again. A uneventful story from Astrea here. It feels like he should be moving across, but so far Serral's struggled to actually break it. Thing is now, Serral's finally teching up. As the Lurker Den finishes, he has plenty of gas in the bank. He can build like 8 Lurkers right off the bat while still getting his Hive Tech upgrades. More Storms. Gonna rip apart a Templar. Surrounding kill an Archon. And now the fleet beacon is on the way. But is it going to be enough? A mothership? A very helpful tool, but Serral's still been mining so much more. And he's lost a significant amount, but he's mined 6,000 more minerals. Though about the same amount of gas. +1 shields. Astrea holding it together for now. And again, if he builds that 200 supply Protoss army, it's very easy to lose one fight and then immediately the game before you can rebuild as Zerg, which is why Serral's being so careful now. He knows he's up against that sort of army. He's kept Astrea busy and almost taken him out, but he's actually just fully transitioned into the late game. We got Lurker range, we got Hydra Lunge, we got Adrenal Glands, all these fancy upgrades, as well as +2 melee attack, which is significantly less fancy, but also very important. That Warp Prism still lives. Serral is maxed out. Astrea managed to keep his 4th base alive for most of this game. Only getting taken out once, which is a pretty big win for him, to be honest. The Templar unburrows the Lurkers. So most of them will get taken out anyways. Huge counterattack of Zerglings. Does he have a recall available? He does. The Banelings are waiting for him. The storm! Wow! Cataclysmic storms annihilating the Zerglings. They will just be ripped away. The Zerglings swept from the 4th base. That was an incredible... I really thought the recall was a mistake. Not as much of a mistake as wandering into all these Lurkers. Again, Astrea putting up an incredible fight. At Serral, he's closing in the Lurkers a lot harder to storm away than the Zerglings are. The Immortals barely living up to their name, and now false advertising. Big counterattack. Okay, moderately sized, yet fierce counterattack. Sorry. What is there backing on to defend? Any Lurkers? A few of them scrambling away. Astrea's gonna go for it, but he lost his Templar. Without storms to soften this up. He has no other mining. There's Zerglings inside. It's still a beautiful positioning on that cannon, making it very hard for the Zerglings to get the damage. Serral trying to target down the Templar, but instead eats a storm. The Queens will be evaporated. And the 4th base will be isolated and killed. Astrea so close. Yeah. Feels like he's just not quite there. He's just not quite fighting the fight. He's gonna try to crush this. He has an observer overhead. The Lurkers actually try to reposition. Lurkers on their own. As we establish struggle against this Immortal Archon army. But again, Serral has financially dominated Astrea. Oh, he lunges into the Archons in the storm, so that goes horribly wrong. But lunges into his death, but I guess it keeps the Lurkers alive a bit longer. Will never not be funny, by the way. I reserve the right to laugh weirdly at it every single time, even if it happens every 10 seconds. The Zerglings picking apart the probes. The Warp Prism! Serral doesn't target it with the Hydra, not that it would matter much. The Zealots in the main, but again, Astrea surrounded! And he's forced to tap out yet again. Another incredible game out of Serral and Astrea. Just coming up a little bit short. Serral looking like he overextended 3 or 4 times, but he extended just enough. If you know what I mean. 2-0 for the finisher. But Astrea's style clearly proving itself. Those storms are so tough to deal with. Serral has to work around them the entire time, charting an entirely new course around the map to avoid them. How dramatic. We go into Ultra Love. The name of the map, certainly not something that rings true. Well, the Zerg players have always loved Ultras. They're just, against a competent Protoss, or Terran, or really even Zerg, they're just too thick to love. Okay? No matter what your mother told you, sometimes size does matter. And in this case, the fact that the Ultras are so large, it makes it very hard for them to get into the fight. And that means they're easily targeted one by one or two at a time by Immortals. They get softened up by a Storm. There's really no army composition they easily beat that they don't do any better than a well-controlled Hydraling Lurker army the vast majority of the time. The exception is if you've managed to limit the Protoss. Like, if they don't go Robo, if they don't have the Immortals. Sometimes players will skip to Sky Toss and not have much of a ground army, and that's when Ultras can just chew up the Templar. And if they don't have Templar, they just lose the Corruptors, to be clear. But, I wish Ultras got more love. But, at best, we have prayers. I don't know how Serral feels like he always just has 2 or 3 lurkers lying around. Somehow he has 2 or 3 more lurkers to pull on defense or offense exactly when he needs them. Which, I want whatever that skill is. Maybe save some games. It doesn't look easy at all, but he finds the space for the lurkers just in time. And Astrea not intimidated by them. Just unable to play defense and offense simultaneously the way Serral is so experienced at. It's a little frustrating. I will say it's a little frustrating because you could see how well put together Astrea's army is. How well prepared. How good he is. There's a reason he's called the Battle Mage. By me. That's really who matters, right? Right, I'm not... one of the most humble casters that I know. Alright. The most modest as well. Possibly more modest than anyone you've ever seen. Just saying. Many, many smart people. But I digress. What was I saying? Oh, the army. I think Astrea plays the most theoretically perfect Protoss. He just isn't quite fast enough to bring it all together to face Serral. Serral has really added so much more, that mid-game sauce. Those extra Baneling buffs. It's a thing. It's happening. Apparently we're doing Baneling buffs now. It's at least enough if their oracles are out of position. It is very dependent on the oracles being out of position, but so far he's managed it. And the Stargate, the oracle is the choice. Anything else is leaving you open to a wide array of attacks. The oracle does all your scouting, does some of your damage. The utility with stasis and revelation is unmatched. It's the Swiss Army knife of Protoss. Slaps a energy recharge, but the Zergling counter, he had to have seen that, right? Oh, the Adept is jammed into the pylon. He's got a probe on stop position, though. Astrea. Well, that is unfortunate. As the Zerglings, he saw the Zergling counter with the Oracle, which is why I'm surprised he brought it back at all. It's very unlikely the Zerglings would have actually killed the base. Of course, he could have added more, but kind of wasting the timing on that Oracle. But he's got more Oracles. Built a second one. Twilight Council on the way behind. No Forge. So is it the Adept game? Is it our obligatory Adept Glaives? Yes! Alright, here we go. Adept Glaives on the way. This time around, Serral will scale. He's building a Roach one. Okay. He's quite... I'm seeing the difference now. The Banelings are actually for counterattack timings and potentially dealing maybe with a Shady Bunch build where you come in with a few Oracles and like 6 Adepts. Whereas the Roaches are a direct response to Adept Glaives. And obviously there's no better counter. Banelings aren't even that good against the mass Adepts because they can so easily split against them, and with Oracles in tow, it's very hard to actually find big connections. But the Roaches, just a bit too tough to take down easily. But of course, Astrea has turned what is usually a big all-in into more of a macro-oriented build, building 3 probes at a time. Serral actually building another round of drones. You know, this might work out in Astrea's favor, because he's taken so long to do the Adept build. Oh. He's taken so long to do the Adept build that Serral didn't build that many Roaches. He's only building Roaches now. Now he's getting Roach speed. He's getting +1. But he may have been bamboozled by the timing. Roaches are popping out. He's got 67 drones, so Astrea does need to get the damage done as quick as possible. Of course. Oh, the Zerglings came out of stasis. At least a few of them. The rest of them looking for a surround at the back. The Oracles have near full energy, so they're doing just fine. Adepts find a few drone kills. Shade back. Blinking +1 around the way. Roach Hydra will be the order of the day. And we'll see what else Astrea wants to play. And Templar with Psystorm. Be something that, at least something I say. I can subscribe. Evolution Chamber to block the Adepts from even thinking about shading him. Meanwhile, one Adept actually lands 3 more drone kills. Throws another shade and uses the Adepts to clear some creep. Roach is scurrying across. Roach speed is done. Astrea, only 4 gates, which is not nearly enough production. He's got 4 more on the way. A second robotics facility alongside a Robo Bay, which is a rare occurrence indeed, but certainly not unwelcome. Will it be Disruptors? I don't think so, as Disruptors don't one-shot Roaches anymore. They just don't have the damage output. They'll have a larger radius. Compared to some months ago. 5 Dropper Lords on the way as Serral loads up 7 Dropper Lords. Alright, he might just drop the entirety of the base. Which, it's been a while since many people listen to dubstep, but here's an opportunity. Hydra speed is done. The Roaches, you know, he might not need the Dropper Lords here. 2 Ruptors on the way. I guess more than Colossi, an opportunity to potentially win the game. So you're gambling a lot on those Disruptor hits. Serral following the same game plan, despite the split in strategies. Deny the 4th base, keep the economy as low as possible, and keep the pressure on. Don't get greedy, just get even. The stasis, is that gonna work? He just doesn't drop out anymore. He's dropping more. An interesting choice, though. If he had a little more time to prepare, could have been a good one. The Disruptors pop out, but is he gonna fire them off in his own main? That's a danger close situation. Fires a shot. He may have killed some of his own probes. Wait, Astrea didn't kill any of the probes, but he's not killing nearly enough of the Zerg. GG, Serral overruns him. The obligatory Adept game is attempted and summarily dispatched as Serral just crushes him. Oh. More one-sided than a Mobius strip this time around. As Serral with the direct and overwhelming response to the Adept Glaives, followed up by a clean Roach Hydra timing. Astrea unable to find any footing that time around. And that brings us immediately to match point. Things are escalating and expediting here as Serral starts to zero in on Astrea. And this is the map that many Protoss players outright veto. It's very difficult to hold on to a 4th base against a concerted Zerg attack, let alone a 5th base. It has less space. It's just a wide open area with plenty of space for nefarious Zerg activities. So... But, of course, if he's able to turn it around here, you might be able to tell how quick the rush distance is by the fact that Astrea actually sent out a probe to block the base. Which, yes, it's considered a dick move, but also an effective one. So, nice probes finished last. Gives the probe a tap, just goes for the pull. I'm going to try to convince the mineral patches to bounce the drones away. Says, you're already getting mined. All right. Both players holding down the gather key in order to convince the mineral patches that they deserve to be there. Or are they inflating their APM to show off to their friends? Yeah, that's what Serral does. Okay. He has... I assume acquaintance is over. He's finished, so maybe we're pushing it. But, and he brings them into his room and he says, "Hey, look how high my APM is." They look in the back. They say, "What are all these trophies that you have here? These your trophies?" No, he's like, "No, check it. I got 600 APM. That means I'm good at the game." Or so most Golden League 4v4 players are convinced. What is APM? American Public Media? I thought we got rid of that. No! Astrea with an adept on the way, and he's building Warp Gate and a robo. Well, whatever it is, it's fresh. He's gonna try something. I don't know if he feels convinced that Serral will have his number on those later games. From our perspective, honestly, if there's no time to check the replays between, some tournaments will allow you. Some tournaments try to get you in the next game as soon as possible. But there is a chance that Astrea feels like he was completely outclassed in those macro games and is grasping at straws. Though clearly he has a robo build he's willing to bring out here, but from my perspective, it was a very thin margin. Both Ley Lines and Abyssal Reef, Astrea easily could have won the game if things went even a little sideways. But from Astrea's perspective, especially against Serral, even being a top player himself, this is Serral. Doesn't get much more top than this. Clem smirks Frenchly, which is redundant, I think, but... A hallucinated oracle. I like it. A hallucinated oracle scout. Though, did Serral... I think he just spotted the observer. He knows. Now, Astrea doesn't want to send the fake oracle in because... Well, we'll see here. Well, he is building spores. So, we built one spore crawler in the main. He's calling something of a bluff here. But... the adepts... Is he actually going to try a sentry? No. Thought he was going to try a sentry drop on it. Force field on the ramp. Doesn't end up being the case, but... Thought about it for a moment. Roachborn and Baneling Nest as Serral covers all his bases. A whole bunch more gates being warped in. Serral spotted him with the Overlord. He knows an attack is coming. Charge and +1 on the way. Another ladder build out of Astrea, but another one of those builds that can just win the game. The Adepts. Queens, get off my... Oh, don't lose it. Don't lose it. Warp Prism already taking a lot of damage. Roaches are on the way. This feels like a cry for help. Serral knows that something along these lines is coming. You might not know for sure that it's charged and not glaive to depths, but the response is the same. A bunch of roaches, some zerglings, should be more than enough. Astrea's doing a 2-base all-in. Yeah. Gets a creep tumor, which, you know, is more than nothing. Very technically. Well, here we go. There's going to be roaches, ravagers, lings, and banes. Serral's only at 44 drones. He has he has 3 bases already done with injects, plenty of production. Yes, they're both on low economies, but this Immortal Sentry push straight out of Wings of Liberty. Well, here we go. He's optimistic. It is a dangerous push. Force field's going to be absolutely critical. Great force fields, but corrosive biles will bring them down quickly. Banelings trickling through. The sentries mostly exhausted. Good start for Astrea. About as well as that ever could have gone, but wasn't good enough. Gotta be very careful with the prism. The ability to juggle back the immortals is critical here. Banelings being exhausted. More sentries warped in. He has +1 done for the charge loss. That's a huge deal if he's actually able to close the distance on Zerglings and Roaches. Right now, the Banelings are just enough to keep them at bay. The War Prism is headed for the main, whereas the Immortals and the Sentries are headed for the third. Astrea taking a risk to try to divide and possibly conquer. He just put a pylon back at home. A huge amount of Zealots being warped in. Nearly a cinematic full of them. But here we go. Attack at the third. Sentries, force fields, but the Banelings are already inside. He breaks down the rest. The charge lot's on top of everything. But the Roaches, the biomass might be too much. Corrosive Bile lands. The Immortals on their own. GG! Serral with a 4-0 sweep. The American Protoss Astrea putting up a good fight, but definitely running out of steam at the end, which means we go straight into our bonus game, which hopefully you'll stick around for. Serral versus Clem. Like Winter, you were holding out a Serral versus Clem. Now this is, Serral was kind enough to send me some of his latter games. So, not the highest, not like a tournament series, but just a one-off here with Serral facing off against Clem. Anti-spoiler bonus game, so that way you guys thought Astrea was able to turn it around with such a sick timing, but instead, no. Serral crushes him. Some great inspiration, but falling apart near the end as Serral reasserts himself. And honestly, Astrea fallen into the traps of what so many Protoss have, especially against Serral, but just generally in the past. Feeling like you need to mix it up. I wish he had tried a more macro style. At least one more time. I think he could have gotten it. He's won games on this patch against Serral with that style. Honestly, balanced complaint-worthy games. The way he plays. But I think the confidence ran low. And so did the supply. But here we are, on ley lines. For anti-spoiler bonus. And if we're going to refer to it, just call the final game. Might confuse some people in the comments, but honestly, if you're reading the comments, like scrolling through before the series, well, you're probably on your phone. You guys have phones, right? And shout out to the people, especially watching on TV. I know you probably won't comment, but there's been a massive uptick in people watching on TV, or whatever they classify TV is. I don't... Now, you guys have TVs. I don't. I'm a millennial, but I've thought about it. They're so cheap now when you go into Costco. You guys know... Okay, stop. Stop it. But then I think, like, what would I do? Would I get off my computer and go watch TV? put on a YouTuber to yell at me about video games for like over an hour? What? Would people go watch people play another sport when they could play it themselves? Even with all the ad breaks and music and all... Wait a second. But I digress. I forget where this started, but anyways, thank you for watching. That's the summary. I hope it makes your day a little bit better. Clem. Heading across with his first Reaper. Serral on the #1 account on the ladder. About 7,300 MMR, which puts him ahead of even Clem by about 200. But this is his streamer account, Sep Suzy, which I'm probably mispronouncing. But apparently, I've seen 2 translations. Apparently, there's one. It's a character, like a Disney character, that's effectively the big bad wolf. As in Finnish. So it's either that, or I Google translated it, and it came up with washed up, or washed, or something like that, which would also be hilarious. And both on brand for Serral. Either overly and almost cliche over the top, or self-deprecating. Honestly, feels more like the second one is accurate, but if you've ever watched Serral stream. Serral needs to stream more. Okay. And participate in weekly tournaments. We need to... You know what would save weekly tournaments from Max Packs versus Clem finals? Probably nothing, considering they both have beaten Serral lately. But at least it might break it up a bit. Join the other 2 Zerg players left playing in those tournaments. But I digress yet again as the Queen... Renda! Back to the creep! Hellion Reaper. Nooking around. 3rd command center. Already on the way. In fact, he's already got an orbital command in production at the 4-minute mark. Before Serral's 3rd base finishes, by the way. He's got a 3rd orbital in production, which is a little obscene, to be honest. Also, with a minimal amount of Zerglings behind, he's only got 10 of them, which enough to potentially trap the Hellions if they run by, though not enough to convincingly do so. So he's risking a bit with it. As Clem just circles back and forth. Overlord taken out. Actually supply blocking Serral. A bit uncharacteristic. I assume somebody just subscribed in the chat and he was busy thanking them. Something like that. I'm always jealous of the fact that so many of these top players like Hero Marine and Serral play and commentate at a higher level than me in their 2nd language. And I only speak 2 languages. Like English and American, so... you ever feel inadequate? Oh yeah, brother. And now here comes Clem. Enough Zerglings, though. We'll see if I was right. He goes for the surround. The Zerglings trying to wrap around. Where are the Queens? The Queen's taking their time while the Zerglings get completely incinerated. Reinforcements on the way, though. Still hasn't gotten to the drones. Cloak Banshee, the Queen pops out. We've arrived in a world of fire, but overall, dispatching the Hellions about as easily as he could. Only loses 3 drones, and the 4th base is on the way. The Hellions are now dead. The Banshee badly bruised, which means no real ability to stop the creep spread for now. And the Queens activates the cloak for a moment. I don't know if it actually did anything, but felt better for the Banshee at least. Serral's at 65 drones. He's got 4 bases now. Clem already has 1-1 in production. Whereas Serral just now finishing his Evo chamber, starts Baneling speed, and then his 1-1... Yeah, thank you. There we go. Since this is a ladder game, we don't have any of the fancy observer interfaces. We're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way of... Well, actually, we do have the regular one, just not the extra counters and all that. We become decadent. Back in my day, you essentially just had the regular player UI with like a production tab and maybe a supply count for both players. Okay. That day being 15 years. Pretty sure we developed the Observer UIs like 2 years in. I have no idea what we do without it now. For those who don't know, this is a custom one that I based off the Observer, the WCS version. Shout out to Bob Cow for making it. I like having all the little counters and stuff. It's slightly modified. Marines. Like plenty of queens out in front, though. 1-1 about to complete, and these Marines gonna get a lot more dangerous. But thankfully for Serral, Clem has forgotten Combat Shield entirely. And that makes the Banelings a lot more dangerous. Banelings without Combat Shield could easily die, Marines without Combat Shield can easily die to a single Bane hit, or a Widow Mine, or some combination of the two, though might not even be needed. Banshee softening up the base to the 12 o'clock. Meanwhile, another group of Marines heading out to the north. Queens just spewing out the creep all over the place. Scans on both sides simultaneously. Widow Mines will burrow. But a lot of the Marines taken out before they can be picked up again. The lack of Combat Shield showing. Some Queens gunned down. Banshee's still in the back corner, but Serral going up towards 90 drones. Zerglings, Banelings, Marines! Some of them get caught down to one medevac full of Marines. +2 infantry weapons and armor on the way. Serral going for Hydras with +1 range and armor. The Widow Mines, quite a threat, but he drags some of them past. Still a big hit on the Zerglings. Combat Shield, 15 seconds out. But until it completes, Clem still has to play very careful. Though he won't. Looks like another drop attempted and shut down. There's still the medevac with a few surviving Marines back there. Combat Shield finally done. Oh, direct hit to the face. And the Queen transfuses, keeping things together more. Target fire on the Banelings as Clem closes in. And Serral just now getting an infestation pit. Forced to endure the Marines, mines, and medevacs, and the single Hellbat that survived. Cancels the Overseer. Lets it die dramatically to the Widow Mine. Targets down a few more Banes, but the rest picked up. And Clem continues to keep the pressure on, trying to trap Serral in a vice of Marines and mines, but Serral so far slipping out of it and crushing through. Oh my, the target fire on the Banelings. Just constant. Another Widow Mine. Thankfully catches the leading Zergling. Could have been much, much worse. Banelings take it out. Serral working on his hive. But the medevacs again, just keeping so much pressure on. Widow Mines, another group. Catches a half dozen Lings. But Serral unable to get the creep spread out. Two Queens assassinated as the Frenchman understands the assignment. Serral maxed out, but it still feels like he can't keep any pressure on. Though I say that just as he surrounds the Marines and closes in on the fourth base. There's almost nothing back here. Clem committed almost everything to the north side. Might be able to take out the 12 o'clock base, but trading his fourth in turn is certainly not an ideal option. Clem down to 160. Serral moving forward yet again. Widow Mines, not even triggered. The hatchery almost dead. But the third base, the Banelings rolling in. Clem's down to 50 SCVs. The Zerglings still chewing through, and the Banelings connect to the north side. Serral just overrunning the field, carrying through the attack, and maybe he just carries the game. Now, if this was a tournament match, I would probably chastise Clem for maybe tapping out a bit early, but with Serral having a hive completed, having 88 workers, full 4-base saturation, still keeping that 12 o'clock base alive and killing that many SCVs, yeah, well, we know which direction this is trending. Serral survives the onslaught of Clem aggression and turns it around, showing us today truly how Zerg was meant to be played. Astrea coming up short, Clem. Struggling, but hopefully everyone else enjoying. And I hope it made your day just a little bit better. If we got the means of motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership. It does help out, but I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. But a shout out to our Mule tier patrons for bringing in all those extra minerals that they always do. Big Jiggy Dorke, Mario N. Thank you for watching. Thank you again. Just keep saying that. All right, just assume. Either way, good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.